The envelope sat on his bunk for 3 days before he opened it. Staff Sergeant Michael Hayes knew what was inside. He'd been dreading it since the moment command told him his deployment was ending in 72 hours. Inside that envelope was a letter from Private First Class Danny Morrison's mother. Danny, who died 4 months ago in Helmand Province. Danny, whose death was officially recorded as enemy combatant KIA. Danny, who Michael watched die from American bullets fired by his own squad. And in 72 hours, Michael would board a plane home, shake hands with generals, accept condolences from families, and carry that secret to his grave. Unless he didn't. Unless he told the truth. Unless he destroyed his career, betrayed his unit, and gave one mother the closure she deserved at the cost of everything else. The clock was ticking, 72 hours, and Michael Hayes had never felt more alone in his entire life. Welcome to Secret Human Stories. Before we begin this devastating story of loyalty, truth, and the impossible weight of moral choices, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from today? And if you believe some truths are worth the cost, hit that subscribe button. Let's dive into the hardest decision one soldier ever had to make. Michael Hayes was 32 years old and had served 9 years in the United States Army. 3 deployments, 2 Purple Hearts, 1 Bronze Star. He was a leader, the kind of sergeant soldiers trusted with their lives, the kind who made decisions under fire and never second-guessed himself. Until April 17th, until the night everything changed, until the moment he realized that some decisions you make in 3 seconds will haunt you for 3 lifetimes. His unit, Charlie Company, 1st Battalion, 504th Parachute Infantry Regiment, had been conducting night operations in a rural valley when the call came in. Possible Taliban movement near a compound. Orders were to investigate and engage if necessary. They moved in under darkness, night vision active, weapons ready. And then the shooting started. It happened fast. Too fast. Contact right. Muzzle flashes in the dark. Michael's squad returned fire. Suppressive bursts. Controlled aggression. The enemy was dug in behind a stone wall near the compound entrance. Michael called for supporting fire from 2nd Squad positioned on the ridge. They obliged. Rounds tore through the night. The muzzle flashes stopped. Silence. Michael signaled advance. They moved in, scanning for bodies, for weapons, for confirmation. That's when they found him. Private Danny Morrison, 21 years old, from Ohio, lying face down in the dirt with 3 bullet wounds in his back. American rounds, from American rifles, fired by American soldiers who thought they were shooting at the enemy. But Danny had moved forward without clearance, had flanked left without comms, had positioned himself exactly where 2nd Squad thought the enemy was. And now, he was dead. Michael knelt. Beside him, checked for pulse. Found nothing. His hands shook, his mind raced. This wasn't supposed to happen. Friendly fire wasn't supposed to happen to them. They were too good, too trained, too careful. But it did happen. And now, a kid from Ohio who joined the Army to pay for college was dead because of a miscommunication, bad positioning, and 3 seconds of chaos. The rest of the squad stood frozen. Corporal Travis Haynes, who fired the shots, was on his knees vomiting. Lieutenant Greg Carver, the platoon leader, was on the radio calling for immediate medevac and speaking in clipped, controlled sentences that barely masked his panic. And Michael just stared at Danny's body and thought about what came next. What came next was a decision made in a tent at 400 hours by men Michael had never met. Officers, colonels, people with stars on their shoulders, and attorneys on speed dial. They reviewed the incident, reviewed the comms logs, reviewed the after-action reports, and they made a call. Reclassify. Enemy KIA. Cleaner that way. No internal investigation. No media storm. No family asking questions that didn't have good answers. Danny Morrison died a hero killed by insurgents, not a victim of fratricide. And everyone in Charlie Company was ordered to confirm the story. No exceptions. Operational security, unit cohesion, orders. Michael wanted to refuse, wanted to stand up in that tent and say no. Say this is wrong. Say Danny's mother deserves the truth. But he didn't, because Lieutenant Carver pulled him aside afterward and said, "If you go against this, you burn everyone. You burn me. You burn Haynes. You burn the squad. You burn your career. And Danny's still dead. The truth doesn't bring him back." So Michael signed the report, confirmed the story, and for 4 months he buried it, until the letter arrived, until 72 hours remained, until the weight became unbearable. He opened the envelope on the 3rd night. His hands trembled as he unfolded the handwritten pages. Mrs. Morrison's handwriting was neat, careful, the kind that came from years of teaching elementary school. "Dear Sergeant Hayes," she wrote, "I wanted to reach out before you come home. I know you were with my Danny when he passed. The Army told me he died fighting, that he was brave, that he didn't suffer. I just need to know if that's true. I need to know if my son knew at the end that he mattered, that he made a difference. Please, if you have any details they didn't tell me, I need to hear them. I need to know everything. A mother's heart can't rest without the whole story. Sincerely, Catherine Morrison." Michael read it 3 times. Each time felt like a knife twisting deeper. She needed to know everything. But everything was a lie. Everything was a cover-up designed to protect careers and reputations and the illusion that the military didn't kill its own. And in 72 hours, he'd have to look her in the eye at some memorial service or family day event and repeat that lie to her face, unless he didn't. Unless he told the truth. But what would that truth cost? He ran the scenarios in his head. Scenario 1, he stays silent, goes home, shakes her hand, tells her Danny was a hero. She believes it, gets closure, moves on. Michael lives with the guilt, but keeps his career, his unit's respect, his future. Scenario 2, he tells the truth, writes a letter, files a report, admits the friendly fire. Mrs. Morrison gets the real story, but the Army comes down hard. Michael gets charged with insubordination, maybe worse. His career ends, his reputation destroyed. And everyone in Charlie Company suffers because he broke ranks. Haynes, who pulled the trigger, gets dragged through an investigation. Carver, who covered it up, loses his commission. The squad fractures. And Danny's still dead. The truth doesn't change that. But there was a 3rd scenario Michael couldn't stop thinking about. What if he told her privately, quietly? No official report. No investigation. Just the truth, soldier to mother, human to human. What if he gave her the real story and let her decide what to do with it? It was the most dangerous option. Because if she went public, he'd have no protection. No paper trail showing he tried to do the right thing. Just his word against the Army's official record. And the Army always won. But at least he'd have told the truth. At least one person would know. At least Danny's death wouldn't be a lie. Michael spent the next 24 hours asking people he trusted. He found Corporal Haynes in the chow hall, sitting alone, staring at a tray of food he wasn't eating. Haynes hadn't been the same since that night. Quiet. Withdrawn. Jumpy. Michael sat down across from him. "You ever think about telling the truth?" Michael asked quietly. Haynes looked up, eyes hollow. "Every day." "But what's the truth going to do, Sergeant? Bring him back? Fix what I did? I killed one of ours. The only thing keeping me sane is believing the lie that it was justified. You take that away, I got nothing left." Michael nodded slowly. "What if his mom asks me directly?" Haynes's jaw tightened. "Then you lie." You lie because the truth destroys her and us. You lie because that's the order. You lie because sometimes that's the only mercy left. But Michael couldn't accept that. Mercy built on lies wasn't mercy. It was cowardice. He found Lieutenant Carver next, in his quarters, packing for the flight home. Carver saw Michael's face and sighed. "You're thinking about telling her, aren't you?" Michael didn't answer. Carver sat down, rubbed his face. "Listen to me, Hayes. I've been in the Army 12 years. I've seen good men make bad calls, and bad men make good calls. This situation? There's no good call. But you need to understand what happens if you talk. They'll court-martial you. Dishonorable discharge. You'll lose everything. And Mrs. Morrison, she'll spend the rest of her life knowing her son died because we screwed up. That's not closure. That's torture. Is that really what you want?" Michael met his eyes. "What I want is for Danny to be alive. Since I can't have that, I want his mom to know the truth." Carver shook his head. "The truth is a luxury, Hayes. We're soldiers. We deal in orders and outcomes. The order is to stay quiet. The outcome is everyone moves forward. You break that, you're not a hero. You're a liability." Michael stood up. "Then I'm a liability." He walked out before Carver could respond. 48 hours left. That night, Michael sat alone in the dark and thought about Danny. Really thought about him. Not as a statistic or a moral dilemma, but as a person. Danny Morrison loved video games, talked constantly about going home and playing Call of Duty with his younger brother. He sent half his paycheck home to help his mom with rent. He wanted to be a teacher like her. He made everyone laugh with terrible impressions of the officers. And he died, afraid, confused, and alone, because the people he trusted killed him by mistake. And now, those same people wanted to bury that mistake under paperwork and protocol. It wasn't right. It would never be right, no matter how many careers it saved. Michael made his decision. 36 hours before his flight home, he sat down and wrote a letter. Not an official report, not a legal document, just the truth, written plainly, addressed to Mrs. Catherine Morrison. He told her everything: the night patrol, the miscommunication, the friendly fire, Haynes pulling the trigger, the cover-up, the lie. And he apologized, not on behalf of the Army, on behalf of himself, for waiting so long, for being complicit, for choosing silence over honesty because it was easier. He sealed the letter, wrote her address on the envelope, and held it in his hands for an hour, staring at it, knowing that once he mailed it, there was no going back. He didn't mail it that night. He carried it with him for the next 24 hours, feeling its weight in his pocket like a live grenade. 12 hours before his flight, he ran into Command Sergeant Major Frank Delgado, the senior enlisted advisor for the battalion. Delgado was a lifer, 30 years in, seen everything. He took one look at Michael and knew. "You're about to do something stupid, aren't you, Hayes?" Michael said nothing. Delgado sighed, gestured to a bench. "Sit." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Delgado spoke. "I've been where you are. Not the exact situation, but close enough. A decision between what's right and what's ordered. And I'll tell you what I learned. Sometimes, doing the right thing means living with the consequences for the rest of your life. And sometimes, doing the ordered thing means living with the guilt for the rest of your life. Either way, you lose something. The question is, what can you live without?" Michael looked at him. "What did you choose?" Delgado smiled sadly. "I chose orders, and I regret it every single day. So maybe you should choose different." Michael pulled out the letter, showed it to him. Delgado read the address, handed it back. "You mail that, your career's over. You know that, right?" Michael nodded. Delgado stood up, put a hand on his shoulder. "Then you better make sure it's worth it." He walked away. Michael sat alone, staring at the envelope, and realized something. It wasn't about his career. It wasn't about the Army. It wasn't even about Danny anymore. It was about being able to look at himself in the mirror, and he couldn't do that while holding a lie. He mailed the letter 6 hours before his flight, walked to the base post office, handed it to the clerk, and watched it disappear into the outgoing mail bin. No going back now. No second thoughts. Just the truth, in transit, heading toward a mother who deserved to know her son's real story. Michael boarded the plane home with nothing but his duffel bag and a sense of calm he hadn't felt in months. He didn't know what would happen next. Didn't know if Mrs. Morrison would go public. Didn't know if the Army would come after him. Didn't care. For the first time in 4 months, he'd done the right thing. And that was enough. 3 weeks later, the call came. Michael was in his apartment in North Carolina when his phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. A woman's voice, shaky but strong. "Sergeant Hayes, this is Catherine Morrison." Michael's breath caught. He waited. She continued. "I got your letter. I've read it 20 times. And I need you to know something. You gave me the truth. You risked everything to give me the truth. And I will never, ever forget that." Michael closed his eyes, felt tears he'd been holding for months finally fall. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "My son made a mistake. Your unit made a mistake. But you didn't make a mistake when you told me. You honored him. You honored me. And I'm grateful." She didn't go public, didn't file complaints, didn't demand investigations. She just wanted the truth. And once she had it, she found peace. Michael never got court-martialed, never got officially punished. But his career stalled. Promotions stopped. Assignments dried up. The Army didn't need to charge him. They just quietly sidelined him. And 2 years later, he retired. Honorable discharge, no fanfare, just a handshake and a thank you for your service. He didn't regret it, not for a second, because some things matter more than rank, more than career, more than orders. The truth matters. Honor matters. And being able to sleep at night matters most of all. Years later, Michael attended Danny Morrison's memorial in Ohio. Catherine Morrison was there, along with Danny's younger brother, now in college. She introduced Michael to the family, not as the sergeant who served with Danny, but as the man who made sure Danny was remembered honestly. They honored him not for the lie, but for the correction. And Michael stood there, surrounded by people who knew the whole story, and finally felt like he'd brought Danny home the right way, not with a flag and a folded uniform, but with the truth. So now I ask you, if you had 72 hours to decide between a comfortable lie and a devastating truth, which would you choose? Have you ever had to choose between loyalty and honesty? Share your story in the comments. Tell us where you're watching from. Because here at Secret Human Stories, we believe that some decisions define us more than any medal or commendation ever could. And the hardest choices often have no right answer, just the one you can live with. Thank you for watching. If this story challenged you, moved you, or made you think differently about courage, subscribe and share. Help us honor the soldiers who choose truth over comfort, even when it costs them everything. We'll see you in the next one. And until then, remember that sometimes doing the right thing means losing everything. And sometimes that's still the right choice.